how they do that, because
Indeed.
I wasn't there. So this is some of the stuff that I'm reading from getting transliterations of the holy tablets and the Sumerian tablets.
And last question, Bdell, where's it at? I just seen it. The chat is moving fast. Okay, here it goes. How does Brother Bdell feel about Titans? Are they waking and causing earthquakes?
Most definitely.
Mm.
Because Titan, what I'm saying, is another word for the moon as well. So you have the Titan. So the moon is also controls the vibrational frequency of the bodies of water on this planet. So when you have a shift in the tectonic plates, that sends a cymatic frequency to the point where it can cause earthquakes, it can cause mass flooding that you got in California right now. Then you got the Euphrates River drying up, and then you have the Mississippi River drying up. So when you have the ecological system thrown out of balance, that throws off the ecosystem. And when they're both not working in symbiotic connection, that can cause a vast majority of earthquakes on the planet.
Indeed, indeed. Shout to Young Elder. We'll be in touch sometime soon, my brother. Shout to Young Elder in the chat. Yeah, man. I mean, this has been a interesting show, family. This is the brother's first time. Is there anything? Wait, hold on. Let me see something. Is there? Last question, brother. Is there a super AI computer on Saturn that has the ancient ones in stasis?
If anything, I would say it was on the dark side of the moon.
Yeah, you said
because
that.
I told you, everything is based on the silver key, and the silver key is the lunar light-like energy, and that's based on microscopic psychotronic nanotechnology that puts an encryption on your anatomy. So when you have that encryption on your anatomy, that can freeze up your molecular structure to where you don't ascend with the planet. You are froze at 33 degrees at a 45-degree angle. So you don't ascend when the planet is in a state of evolution.
Indeed. Man, any before we get out of here, brother, any books you recommend the family to read?
Yeah, read The Code, The Matrix. I forgot the author's name. Read L's Holy Injil by Dr. York. It's a transliteration of the Sumerian. It's a transliteration of the Book of Revelation. Read the Holy Tablets if you want to get, a concept of the inception of how everything was, created. Because the great majority of those books are basically inception points of how theology and things of that nature was created. And it has a lot of galactic information in it as well.
Yo, what do you think about that book? What's that? The dude L. Ron Hubbard.
Oh yeah. There's another book, The Rings of Saturn by Norman Burgum. Get that book as well.
I heard about that. But the dude, what's that thing that they do? From the white dudes that was down with the Nation of Islam, they started working together. What's their names? The Scientology. There was.
You said L. Ron Hubbard? No, he's the.
Is that the Scientology dude?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, damn. There was Dianetics. How do you feel?
Dianetics guy.
How do you feel about that? I remember. I think Farrakhan said he wanted his people to learn about Dianetics or something like that. Have you ever studied that whole thing, Dianetics?
No, I've never got into it, but I know it has something to do with like mental health.
Yeah, something with the mind. It's definitely something
with the mind, because he was saying something like, I think he went to South Africa or something like that, and he said like it was something wrong with Black people's minds and stuff like that, and they was using that as a way of infiltrating the land.
Yeah. I got to do more research on that, y'all. But listen, man, brother, I want to thank you once again for coming on the show. Any last words, and let the people know that you want to tell the people, and let the people know how they can follow you on all your platforms, my brother.
Okay, my platforms is Bdell1014, B as in boy, D as in dog, ELL1014. I'm also on Instagram at Bdell1014. You can find me on Facebook at Bridal Rice at Bridal Rice Bay on Facebook, and you can also find me on TikTok which is Bdell1014 as well. Those are all my titles on the vast majority of my social
childhood and shit, man. So it was some deep shit, man. Listen, let's get started. Bdell, man, you do your thing when it comes to the decoding. I think how old are you now, brother? I don't mean to ask Chase. How old are you now, brother?
I'm 31.
Brother, like young brother doing his thing, man. You definitely one of the sharpest brothers out there on the internet right now, brother. Just want to tell you, keep up the good work, brother. You're doing an amazing job.
I appreciate
it. So this movie, I first heard about this movie from a post you put up on Instagram. And you put up a post on Instagram, and you was talking about the predictive programming, and you was talking about the draconians, I believe, and just different things related to this movie. And I said, I gotta get this brother on this breakdown, as well as KT. KT told me about the movie the next day, and I was like, damn, I gotta get both of these brothers on the breakdown. So just to start out with, brother, with this movie, because one of the themes I'm hearing everywhere, all over the internet, black, white, whoever, everybody say this movie's predictive program. This is predictive programming. Now, in terms of this movie, this is what I want to ask you, Bdell. Do you think now the Obamas produced it?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think this movie can it be predictive program, but can it also be, Bdell? Now, I was taught by the elders that when they want to do some shit and they don't want karma to hit them, they got to tell you first. So is it a way they're going to do the shit regardless because they have the capability of doing it, but they don't want the karma of what they're about to do to hit them that hard. So they're putting the movie out there. Do you think it could be that instead of predictive program or something else? What's your thoughts on comparing those two, getting rid of your karma versus predictive programming, Bdell?
It's definitely predictive programming because they adhere to the occultic law, which is the threefold law. Mm-hmm. So they get consent for us by putting this stuff in the form of psychological operations, and they put it in the form of entertainment. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things where you got to understand that the CIA has an office in Hollywood, and Hollywood has an office in the CIA. So a lot of this stuff that's taking place in these movies actually has to play a part of the timeline of eschatology, which is basically the science of the end times. So when you understand the movie is really just based on destabilization, isolation, and the precursor to that is self-preservation, which is the first rule of nature. So it comes down to the fact that it can spark a civil war. And there's a movie that's connected to Leave the World Behind, and it's coming out on April 24th of 2024. 2024 of this year. So it's actually talking about a civil war in the midst of the planet going through a chaotic energy. But when it comes to the plutocracy and these oligarchs and these elites or the deep state shadow government, whatever you want to call them, most of the time when they want to, have a certain agenda they want to propagate, they have to give you the truth in the movies. Mm-hmm. So that's basically the diametrical differences of predicting programming and, to basically reset their karma.
Indeed. So what can you tell us about this movie? Why do you think it's standard? Is it just another end of the world? End of the world, the world's about to end movie, fear-based movie. Do you think this one is different? What stood out about this movie in particular to make it so popular, brother, while you was watching it?
Well, when I watch a lot of movies and I do a lot of decodings, way before, I started getting on the internet, but I felt like this movie had a different energy. It was really just giving you the propagation of many different afflictions that's going to be taking place when you're talking about this 7-year tribulation period that we're living in, because this movie is actually setting the tone and the frequency for what is to come in the future, because it's actually an emulation of what's taking place as far as like geopolitical issues. I remember you had the World Economic Forum. They said it was inevitable that there was going to be a cyber attack on United States soil. And they said that 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And then you also have the influx of war and rumors of war when you're talking about Iran and China, because the United States military, we killed off Soleimani, who is Iran's war general. And just like in the movie, there was a drone in the movie and they was putting out these red pieces of paper talking about death to America. And that's the same phrase that they were saying, that Iran was saying when we killed off their war general. So a lot of stuff that's taking place in the movie is actually an emulation that's taking place in real time. Then you just had in Sri Lanka, you just had a power outage. And then just like in the movie, the Tesla cars, Tesla today just had a recall of 2 million cars.
Yeah.
Autopilot malfunction. And then you just had a massive solar flare hit like 3 hours ago. It was a monster X-class solar flare. So we're going to get into that when you're talking about X-class solar flares and DNA activation. And you also had in the movie, it was when you look at the cover of the movie, right? Yeah. The cover of the movie is basically showing you it's a metaphysical codex. It's a codex that reads Baal when you look at the title, BLL. And when you understand the 1180 strong concordance of Yahweh, it translates to Baal, who was Baal, who was Moloch, who was Enlil, who is basically the same entity. So when you go all the way back to Babylonian worship, when you're talking about the deep state shadow government took a Baal is basically the same thing. So they have to show their veneration and credence to their God in a form of a sacrifice. So that kind of goes into the fact when you're talking about the de facto corporation in itself. And then you also got to understand this also plays a part of the economical issue when you're talking about the money system, the crypto control system, trying to implement. Because when you go all the way back to the 1928 Great Depression, during that time period, that's when the stock market crashed. And then the precursor to that is when they transmuted the money system by giving us social security cards and made us humanoid real estate. So in order to suspend the debt in current day time, they have to kill off a lot of people because we have social security numbers, which is a community uniform security identification procedure. So it connects you right back to the system. So we're actually currency to the system. And so in order to suspend the debt of the $33 trillion of the international banking system, they have to basically shut down the grid system to where people actually kill themselves off in the name of a civil war, or those things where you have these nanobots and these nanotechnologies within your molecular structure that connects you to the grid system that can basically shut down your anatomy. Because we all know that technology basically puts an encryption on the anatomy. So everything is connected to the Metatronic overlay is basically connected to the symbology of patriarchy. And patriarchy is a representation of the moon energy. So it's one of those things where it can be one thing I know that the plutocracy does. They like to align psychological operations along with celestial events to hide the fact that we're going through a great awakening process and we're going through a great reset. So that's why a lot of people don't know if it's going to be a CME that'll knock out the grid, or it's going to be a EMP that's going to knock out the grid. That's the diametrical difference, because the EMP is an electromagnetic pulse deficiency that can be propagated by the military, or it can be a CME, a coronal mass ejection, that can knock out the power grid and put the planet in a state of destabilization. So, but like I said, the main key points of the movie is based on destabilization, isolation, and then the precursor to that is self-preservation. And that self-preservation in itself is where people are going to galvanize their resources in order to maintain survival. And see, this movie is everything that's built around this movie. You're talking about the movie industry, the music industry. Everything is basically a segue up to this movie, which means that it's basically the final warning. You just, P. Diddy, he put out his album, and guess what it was called? It was called Off the Grid. You know what I'm saying? Then he was propagating the red energy. The red energy is a satanic energy, right? Which goes all the way back to the color spectrum of purple and red of Babylonian worship. So it ties into that because democracy in itself is connected to the veneration of the Babylonian principle. So that's why I said like Baal and Moloch is connected to this whole movie when you look at the title.
Yeah, wow. Very, very interesting. One thing you said, I thought you said patriarchy is tied to the moon. I thought the moon was tied to divine feminine and the female with the woman's cycle, and I thought that was a
no. I'm saying that it subjugates the divine feminine energy.
Okay.
Because what I'm saying is like the inception of the planet. We all know it was started when you talking about the 24,000 year beatification period. The first 6,000 years was based on a sun cycle. So what I'm saying is like when you're talking about the energy of the lunar cycle, that's connected to material, and the material plane is connected to a patriarchal society that is galvanized by capitalism, is galvanized by monotheistic religious systems, is galvanized by classism, is galvanized by, the political system in itself when you're talking about turning humans into humanoid real estate, chattel slavery.
Mm-hmm.
This goes into the white lion. We're gonna get into that as we go into the video.
These things that as Phil Valentine calls them, the parasitic elite want to implement, do they have to do it in a certain year? Because a certain year denotes a certain energy. Like 2020, major shit went down in 2020 with the lockdown and everything, and people was breaking it, connected it to the 2020 and the vision and this and that. 2024, build and destroy. Do you think shit has to go down in 2024 because of that number, because of the number 8, or do you think they have a time period where they could do certain things?
I think it has to go down right now because 2023 was actually the precursor to the year 8, which is based on the supreme mathematical sequence of building and destroying.
Right.
The building of a matriarch as you have the destruction of patriarchy. So in actuality, when you go to the 1813 Freemasonic Apocryphal Bible, it basically tells you that the year 2023 is actually the year 5,999.
Mm-hmm.
The year of 2024 is the year of 6,000. So 6,000 year beatification period of the lunar cycle that's connected to their system has to phase out. So that's why in 2023, you have the Balfour Declaration expired. When you're talking about the state of Israel, you got the Federal Reserve filed Chapter 11. Then you had the United States Corporation filed Chapter 11. Then you had all these British monarchy systems filing Chapter 11. That is basically the trilateral connection of their system that controls us on a democratic level. Like I said, because democracy is basically, a de facto corporation. So that's what controls us. So as we going into the year 2024, it actually dismantles that energy. As we segue into the year 2025, which is the 9 year, the 9 year of the non-ether energy. So like I said, it could be one of those things where the grid goes down to where actual things take place just like it did in the movie, or it can be the power grid being knocked out because of the energy of the sun in the 9 year, because that's when the sun is at solar maximum. So just as I'm saying today, the sun cycle, we in solar cycle 25. Solar cycle 25, 2 + 5 is 7, and 7 is a representation of the God frequency or the Christ consciousness. So that God frequency in itself is based on the fact that this can be a precursor to the 7th seal being opening to where you have a magnetic pole shift and a great solar flash and things of that nature.
We're talking about numbers. The movie started out with with this whole 666 with the clock and things like that. How does the 666? People have different breakdowns of it. You talked about Moloch and Lil. What's the connection between the 666? Because I heard about the whole melanin connection, but what's the connection between the 666 and this entity and Lil that you talked about is connected with this movie?
Actually, if this just based on my independent research, when you talking about the sunspot activity that just took place a few days ago, there was a sigil on the sunspot, and it was a direct emulation of the Hebrew number 6. And it's also connected to the sigil system of the spirit of the moon. So, like I said, it can be one of those things where the influx of the energy of the sun can basically reverse the polarity of the 6th ether energy that keeps you connected to the Metatronic overlay, which is basically the foundation of the lunar cycle.
Right. Do you think it's in a movie that we should be paying attention to in particular?
the main thing you should pay attention to is this movie is really talking about the reverberation and the liberation of our people. So when you go talking about the White Lion was talking about the inception point of hitting the shorelines of America in 1619. 1619 all the way to 2019 was the end of the 400-year curse of your so-called slavery. So then after that, from 2019 to 2020, Donald Trump, he signed the Second Declaration of Independence that basically suspended the corporations in itself, which is why they filed Chapter 11 in 2023. So it's all based on the restoration of a republic. Because like I said, you can't, as we're going into a sun cycle was galvanized by a republic, and a republic is galvanized by a matriarch. And a matriarch started with, the indigenous people that's connected to the geographical landmass of America. So the people that was on that White Lion, when you're talking about the Dutch, because the White Lion was actually a Dutch warship that came onto this geographical landmass and implemented ecclesiastical law, which is connected to canon laws, and canon laws are connected to corporate internal codes, which is based on commercial law. So that commercial law in itself is connected to a form of patriarchy that's connected to their financial and their economical system. So like I said, it's really just based on the fact that it's basically dismantling the 400-year curse. That's what that was basically the symbology of that. Right.
So the Obamas are involved in this. Now they directed it. Am I correct? They directed it. So I remember back in the day, comedians used to make jokes about, we'll never have a black president. If we do have a black president, it's the end of the world. Then when Obama became president, people was like, America is going to fall very soon. We have a black president.
Right.
Do you think, what is it about the black president being connected with the fall of America? And now here comes this black president again being connected with the fall of America in a movie. So what is it about melanin and this melanated authority and this fall of America, where every time this melanated authority pops up, it's always tied to the fall of this country, whether it's a movie or whether it's in real life?
Well, it's kind of like a catch-22. It's like they understand, the great majority of so-called black people are very politically naive. And when it comes to politics and iconography and having a veneration for people of color when they have, high positions and things of that nature, that's the illusion, because they know he was going to be the chess piece to implement, because he's the one that signed the Patriot Act. He's the one who signed the NDAA, martial law bills and things of that nature. So a lot of people will actually show credence to Obama, even though he signed a lot of stuff that put us in the state of where we're at right now. So it's like, it's one of those things where they knew they can mix the candy with the medicine. So he was actually the chess piece in order to implement a New World Order system.
Indeed. Yeah. Some people are calling this movie some people are like this movie got people moving, Bdell. I know people that started stocking up the day after this movie came out. Something different about this one, man. With so much negativity coming about from this movie, from the so-called, let's say the so-called conscious people are saying this movie's negative, it's fear-mongering, and they're staying away from it. What are your thoughts about those who look at it as inspiration versus those who look at this movie as fear-mongering? Because I'm seeing two different ways to look at this movie from two different people.
The thing about, being conscious and being acclimated to spirituality, it's all about not being tricked. It has nothing to do with, peace and love and light. Spirituality and enlightenment and consciousness is all about not being tricked and being able to have the mental fortitude to decipher the messages within these movies. So people get so caught up into the fact that, even though it's showing you the reality of things that can actually take place, they say that it's fear mongering, or, I don't want to hear nothing about the end of the world and things of that nature. It lowers my vibration. But this is a reality, though. These things that actually take place, because once something happens, then you're not going to be able to reap the benefits of having resources of when things start to actually go down, just like it took place in the movie. You're not going to be ready for it because you basically swept everything under the rug because you didn't want to see the reality of everything that was taking place in the movie.
Right. Yeah, I seen somebody wrote, being conscious is not holding on to the world. You think the more conscious we come, the more we hold on to the world more?
It's what it seems like.
Some people, huh?
Because a lot of people have an emotional attachment to the great majority of these things on the planet.
Indeed.
So I always look at, when I watch movies like this, I always look at it from a metaphysical eye. So I'm just looking at it from, because it's a message and everything. Just like they had when you had the draconian juice that came out, there was a movie called Contagion that came out, and then it actually took place in real time in 2020. These movies are actually messages. Then you had the movie The Knock at the Cabin, which is basically kind of like a precursor to the movie that we're to the Leave the World Behind movie. Because it's like in that movie, you had an influx of planes falling out of the sky and they were crashing due to the power grid faulting out. These are real. That's why I tell people all the time, be very meticulous of you getting on these planes. I'm not trying to scare you or nothing like that, but what you're going to do when the energy grid goes down. And then the World Economic Forum been telling us at the end of the movie, they told you it's the last warning. So how many more warnings that we're going to get from the establishment? How many more warnings we're going to get from the movie industry, the music industry, that putting all these golden nuggets, in these movies to warn humanity, just basically to suspend their karma. We can't castigate these things and just write it off as a conspiracy.
Right. What personally, you talked about, the energy grid being shut down, and that was a theme in the movie. You also mentioned Diddy's album Off the Grid. What does this movie inspire you to do personally if the energy grid does go, or when? Or some people would say when, some people would say if, but let's say when or if the energy grid shuts down. What is this movie? Let's look at it as being inspiration. What is it inspiring you to do, Bdell?
It inspires me to work. It inspires me to do a lot of things that are a lot more self-affirming. I'm in the gym. I'm not in the gym for the women. I'm in the gym, in case, some stuff goes down and I got to have, strength, and I got to have endurance in order to survive what is, to come. A lot of stuff that I do as far as my hobbies that, that's acclimated to a certain timeline, and I'm going to be prepared for it. So whether if it's you stocking up on food or, galvanizing weaponry and things of that nature, that's what you got to do, because we in a time period right now is like, it's kind of critical. You don't know if it's going to happen today or tomorrow, but we do know that we at the end of a corporation, you at the end of a system. And a lot of times when you at the end of a system, you got to hit the reset button. And the best way you can see that is to understand that when they try to pass off things that are degenerate, they try to pass it off as if it's progressiveness. That's how you know it's the end of a system.
Good, brother.
They trying to make evil fair seeming. And a lot of that's how you know that this whole system in itself has to hit the reset button. Right. Because everything has reached its limits. There's no evolution for the third dimension.
What do you mean by that? So it's
you just got to look at it like, as far as the music, I feel like the music has reached its mandated cap. The movies, they coming out with remakes. Everything has reached its limit. The third dimension in itself is a limited type of energy. And like I said, it's reached its bifurcation period. So nothing is really progressing. So this is why they're giving you sexual proclivities. They giving you many different forms of degradation, and they say, "Oh, this is progressiveness. You should generate this," but it's really you going backwards. So that's why the cosmic clock and the cosmic pendulum has to hit the reset button, whether it's going to be orchestrated by the plutocracy or it's going to be orchestrated by nature. But we do know everything got to be zeroed out.
I wonder, you know, this movie hit around the same time that when we just showed that hole in the sun. I think it was around. It came out around that time that hole appeared in the sun, man.
Mm-hmm. And then you just had oh my bad, go ahead.
Okay, no, I just had who?
We just had a X-class, a monster X-class solar flare hit 3 hours ago.
Right.
And it had the same depiction of the blue sun that Andre 3000 was talking about.
Right.
When I saw the publication for it.
Right.
So this can also be the inception point of trying to tell us about the blue star Kachina and things of that nature.
Right. So these people, these so-called elites, do you think that, you know, they are allowed to do a certain amount of evil in the world, but whenever entities in a high dimension want to use them, they could take over them like a robot? So let's say we think because it came from Obama, it's something bad, or it came from Steven Spielberg, or Star Wars came from this one, it's something bad. But when these people who do a lot of evil things, but when it's time, when the ancestors or the spirits want to use them, they will use them for something good. And we have to look beyond the messenger into the message because it's coming from the higher ups. Do you think like these people are being controlled right now to do the bidding for us? It looks bad, but they're really doing the bidding for us. Do you think that's a possibility?
I believe so. You go to L's Holy and Jill, Revelations chapter 17. It tells you that the evil reptilian gave power to the beast, and the evil reptilian is also connected to the 200 fallen angels who are the cherubim. So when you talking about as far as who controls the energy extraction matrix,
right?
The Canaanite are the ones who control this whole system, and they're doing the bidding of a certain archonic figure and the archonic forces behind the scenes, or